I think that the role of Christianity during slavery was essentially to create a narrative that made enslaved people feel that their sole purpose in life was to be a slave. And I believe that the white man needed a tactic to maintain power and control in this situation. So they used something as powerful as spirituality to justify the act of enslavement. I think that they needed to attach some sort of morality to this situation, so they used Christianity and twisted aspects of it to do so. I also think that they needed to affirm to slaves, as well as other white people, that this is what they were supposed to be doing. They made slaves believe that this is where God wanted them to be, and because they had already stripped them of their native spiritual practices, this is what slaves believed. But they also needed to convince other white people so that they could have more people on board and people weren't judging them or frowning upon the act of enslavement. So they convinced themselves, white people convinced themselves, that they were intrinsically superior to us and that this is what they were supposed to be doing, that God chose them to find this new world and use these slaves to maintain it. And I can support this idea with these few verses within the Bible. So I think that though it was an evil tactic, it was something large enough and powerful enough to get people to go along with what they wanted them to do. And I think that carried down into a capitalist society being created, because I think white people did know that Africans were superior to them in many aspects, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Physically, they put us in harsh conditions, took away a lot of our strength, and mentally, they forced illiteracy upon us. So they could tell us this verse from the Bible that affirmed slavery, but we didn't have the ability to go back and read the rest of the chapter to see the rest of the context attached to that story. And so that gave them more power. And that kind of connected the mental and spiritual superiority that we naturally have was taken away from us by them controlling all of those aspects of our lives. So I think that they then used literate slaves to confirm that this is where God wanted us to be, to kind of get us to believe more so that we didn't need to rebel or we didn't need to fight for freedom. It kind of took away the goal of being free and just forced slaves to try to live a better life as a slave. If I'm going to be the slave, let me make the best out of my slave life. And I think that created more turmoil within our own community, because we were fighting to, be good with the white man as opposed to be good with our own people to essentially be free. And so, like I said, though I feel like it was one of the most evil roles connected to slavery, I think that it generationally has maintained power and control over Black people by stripping us from our native customs and things that we did historically and that our ancestors did, because, we don't know what our ancestors practiced. We don't know where we're from. A lot of us don't even know where we come from. And so that has systematically oppressed us as people for generations. And I think that was one of their main goals with trying to enslave us and keep us enslaved.